Welcome to the wedding journey. I'm Caitlin.
And I am Mitchell.
And this is how we started our photography journey.
I'm Caitlin.
No.
Okay, someone's feeling goofy today, which is good. That's a good way to start a conversation about something that was really difficult for us.
Yeah, one of the hardest points in our lives.
I would say it was probably one of the hardest points of our lives. Well, so I think that with just about anybody, their wedding journey is a little bit unique. Everybody's doing.
Everybody comes into it differently.
They do, and some people go to school for it. Some people do not. We were two people who did not go to school for it.
Went to school for graphic design.
And I went to school for biology.
So, I mean, that's one step away from photography.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how it gets much closer. I don't know what anybody else is doing.
Photography degree people are suckers.
They are suckers.
You learn everything you need to know in the biology department.
You do. Do you know how many times I had to take pictures through a microscope?
Oh my gosh. You're basically learning composition in lab.
There's nothing more technical than taking a picture through a microscope. My people out there who also did biology will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things you do.
It's actually when we get second shooters, we vet them. We're like, do you have a biology degree? Do you have microscope experience? If they don't, we don't hire them.
It's true. Biology degree required.
So, anyway, how we got started.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to say that neither of us knew that this was something that would happen for us.
No, at least I always kind of felt that I would always end up doing something on my own. I just could never see a path. I never knew what form that would take. And I knew that I was supposed to be seeing opportunities. Everyone was like, oh, when you see opportunity, you got to take it. And I didn't see any opportunities ever. My whole life, all the way through college, a couple years out of college, like I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then we got presented with this opportunity and it kind of just took off. So I didn't expect to be here, but I expected to be somewhere.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how I was going to get there.
Yeah. We both, just like right out of college, felt like we deserved more than what our workplaces were giving us. We, like a lot of people who work just for big companies, felt not cared for. Not that you worked for a big, well, you did for a little bit.
Yeah, I worked at Honda Manufacturing, which is a very big company. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even hired on. I was a temp. So I was just like as cannon fodder gets.
Yep. And I was also a temp. We graduated from college. We took a couple months to look for jobs. And it's not like we took the first job opportunities that were presented to us, but we took the ones that we thought there was like room for growth that we felt good about. And they both just kind of proved to be lackluster. Like working for a company that doesn't give a shit about you as a person is hard. And I don't know if everyone's experience is like that, but I've worked since I was 15 and a half. From like as soon as I could start working, I was working. And the thing that I've learned is just that companies have a hard time appreciating the people who work for them. And because I'm a person who just generally cares more than average, I think that gets taken advantage of. So a lot of the time, like I would do stuff for free if I just got like appreciation from people. Mm-hmm. And on top of not getting paid a lot, I was definitely not getting appreciation within my job. So we both knew that there was something different for us on the horizon.
But we didn't know where to take it.
We had no idea. And
because we didn't know what to do, we kind of just got as comfortable as we could, but kind of just like went through the motions of life for almost a year and a half.
Yeah. And I think we started to get more comfortable. Yeah. Like we started to set up to be there forever.
Yep. We're like, how can we make this work?
And it wasn't until COVID that we got a chance to just really analyze what it was we were doing. Mm-hmm. So I remember sitting at my computer and I got an IM from my boss and he said, "Would you come to my office?" And I said, "Sure." And I went to his office and he said, "Unfortunately, COVID's been really difficult and we are going to have to let some people go. And unfortunately, like we really appreciate all that you've given us, but we have to let you go." And then I was given 30 minutes to pack up my desk and leave the building. And I had to hand him my key card on the way out. And I handed him my key card and he's like, "Well, thanks so much." And then I left. Like, it's just like, I can't believe that it just felt so cold. Like if we were to end what we're doing now or something, it would be, granted we've been here for 4 years and we've built this on us, but it just felt like forgiving a lot of my energy to this like company, and looking at moving up within this company, like I deserved more than just a hand in your badge and be gone in 30 minutes. So
because they like pushed you out. They said you need to be gone in 30 minutes, like you gotten fired for something serious.
I like dropped my coffee cup on the way out of the door and had to like, I was like trying not to cry while I like try to like wipe it up with paper towels. It was exactly what you'd imagine in a movie where somebody walks out embarrassed, like that scene from The Office where Jan gets fired and she's like trying to hold her box of like belongings, and then she like, it like falls out of her arms and it's like kind of embarrassing for her. That's what it felt like, except for in that situation I wasn't being let go because I was like an irrational employee who just got a boob job and was being irrational. It was COVID, because also there were hundreds of other employees the same day that got let go. I was just in a different department of one person, so it was just different. And then I just remember sitting like around that week and just being like, well, I don't know what we're supposed to do.
No. And a week before Caitlin got let go, I was on my way to work and they called me and said that we are giving everyone who is not an essential employee like leave, undetermined amount of leave. And so I wasn't technically fired, but I think they ended up calling me back like 3 or 4 months in, being like, all right, we're ready for you to come back.
It was longer than that, because we were confident in
I guess it was almost a year afterwards.
It was a while.
That at a point they were like, we're ready for you to come back in. And at that point, I guess we'll get there. But like, I couldn't say yes.
Yeah. And after we got let go, we both just kind of were, after we got let go, we tried to determine what it was we were going to do with our free time. We were living in an apartment and had no plan for the future. It was hard enough to find those jobs, like let alone other jobs during COVID.
No plan, an insignificant amount of savings, not enough to carry us through a whole year.
An undetermined, because that's the thing, it was all undetermined. We had no idea how much time we were going to be without jobs. So it was like, okay, well, our apartment lease is coming up. We probably aren't going to sign another year just because
we don't know.
We have no idea. You could get called back in and start making money in a month, or
but I could not.
Take the year that it took. And then my company, as I was leaving, like some of the older gentlemen in the lab that I was in were like, oh, he'll be back. Like, it'll be fine. It's temporary. And although I'm really glad it wasn't, at the time, I just knew I'm not coming back. This is it for me. And which is like equally terrifying and equally not terrifying. Just like, it's just the start of something brand new.
You're just thrown open to the cold, empty world. And you have no idea what you're going to do. So we walked around for like a week.
Walked around Columbus.
Yeah, we lived in a downtown city, and it was a ghost town. And so we just walked around parking lots. We walked miles and miles and miles. And then once we just kind of did whatever until our lease on our apartment started coming to an end. And then we decided that we needed to live somewhere. We still... How many jobs did you apply to?
I applied for like 70.
70? How many did you get?
Zero. I got, it was either, I applied to 70 plus jobs, and while I was applying to them, I would either get an email response that said, hey, sorry, right now we're not hiring due to COVID. Like, we just haven't taken the listing down. Thanks for reminding us, which is annoying if you've ever filled out a job application. You like work hard on your resume, and then you
put all the information in again in the application.
Yeah, they basically make you rewrite your resume for the application. So that was annoying, or I wouldn't get a response at all, which is super sad because we had both worked really hard in college to be employable, and we're both really hardworking people. So to get to the other side of college and be let go from a job because of COVID, and then to apply to over 70 jobs and not get anything besides we're not interested, that was really hard. And I was even getting excited about some of them. I was like, I could see myself doing this. Every time you like talk yourself into signing like the application and everything, and
you're like, oh, maybe this could work. The same feeling you have when you buy a lottery ticket.
And
you're like, maybe this could work, even though you kind of know it won't.
You start to envision your future, and it just
start to fantasize about what you're going to do with the money. And during that time, I was also kind of strung along by my job, so I hadn't started looking, but our lease was up. We weren't making money, so we couldn't, it's not like we could qualify for a new lease on somewhere else. So we decided, we made the hard decision of living with my parents until we could figure out what was next.
Which was really, really fortunate. I feel
not everyone
really
can do
fortunate. They had an extra bedroom. Granted, it wasn't like we lived in their guest house. Like we shared a kitchen, we shared a bathroom space with your siblings.
Yep.
Like we had a bedroom that we like put our king mattress in and kind of took up most of the room of the bedroom.
Yep.
It was, we are so fortunate that we had somewhere like that didn't require us to pay monthly rent.
Yep.
And we're fortunate that we were able to take time. Like I think that put us in a position where we weren't forced to rush into anything. We were able to really sit and analyze like what our next step is supposed to be. And that I really believe is the reason we are doing what we're doing, is because we didn't feel like we had to get something that we didn't want, or we had to make something work that wasn't supposed to work. We were able to sit down and really give our dreams the time and energy that they deserve. So we lived at Mitchell's parents' house for a year total.
Total of a year, okay.
But we moved in March, right? Yep,
and we moved out in like May. So it was like a little over a year.
But we moved into your parents in March. And while we lived there, I had like this nice camera that Mitchell actually talked me into getting in college, because I'd always been like my family's photographer. On vacation, I was the person who like took the pictures of my family having a good time. They were garbage. Like they're definitely taken by someone who has no idea what they're doing with the camera. But I just was like the person who loved capturing memories for other people. So that was like my job, and I loved it. And I had this camera. It was a $100 camera. It was a $100 camera from Gadgeties. It was a Nikon D40X, which had 3 focus points, which is crazy. It was like, hold on, let me look up how many megapixels. It was a whopping 10 megapixels.
That's less than my phone.
Yeah, it was not great.
Yeah.
But to anybody who looks at me, I look like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I took some pictures with that of like our dogs, and my sister just had a baby, so I took a couple pictures of my niece, and I got the idea to start Caitlin Levitt Photography. And Mitchell, being the most supportive husband in the world, made me my logo and
which was atrocious. It wasn't good.
It was amazing. What are you talking about?
Oh, it was like bright baby blue, and it was just the most basic color. It was the most basic photographer thing. It was just the aperture. Just a picture of an aperture that was blue.
It was really good. I remember seeing it, and I was like, shut up, you did not do that yourself, because I don't know anything about making stuff like that. So that was amazing. I'm sad he thinks it's not great, because it was great. We've moved on to better things.
Yeah.
But that was pretty good. That was good for what I needed. And then I launched Caitlin Levitt Photography, and it was terrifying. I thought that there was a really good chance that nobody was ever gonna see it or want anything to do with us, and so I launched it. And then my cousin he contacted us and said that they were getting married in May.
But how long did it take to get rolling? How long was your page up before you really started to get business?
Like a year. And
at this time, I was not doing any of it. I had decided I was going to do pet portraits in pastels and in pencil.
They're realistic as hell, and they are so good. He should be doing them still, but
yeah,
this is our full time.
there's only so much money that someone's willing to pay for something like that, and the time invested it wasn't worth. I couldn't make enough money doing it, so I eventually had to drop it.
Which is really sad, because he was so good at it. But maybe one day we'll be able to pick it back up as a passion. But
so your photography page is open for like a year. You're not getting much, and then John and Cassie reached out.
So yeah, my cousin Jonathan had met a lady, and they decided to get married. And he reached out to me and was like, "I want you to take our wedding photos." And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? This is like new for me. And he was like, "Yeah, we want family. Like, we just want a small wedding, and we want family to take the pictures and be a part of it." And I was like, okay, as long as you understand what you're getting yourself into, because I knew I couldn't produce stuff. Like, I just taking pictures of our dogs. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Well, I did a lot of research, and I saw that wedding videography, it was in 2020, obviously.
2020, yep.
So wedding videography had just started to be a thing. Like, wedding videography as we know it today with the short films, like, that had just started to be a thing. And I remember seeing it and being like, it would be perfect if Mitchell does videography. Like, I really don't think there were any hybrid teams at the time. Like, freaking Taylor Jackson was doing both by himself, but I don't remember having resources to figure out how we could both do the job together at the time, because it was like kind of unheard of. Videography was small anyway.
Right.
But to find people who were doing both video and photo at the same time and were specializing in weddings, that was unheard of. And I was like, what if we could do this together? So I brought it to Mitchell.
And I had just bought a camera for doing time lapses for my drawings, and just so happened to take video. So I was like,
he started off with like a camcorder. We thought that was not as professional as
we had. We just went on Amazon and we searched 4K video camera, and like a $200 like flip out camcorder came up, and we're like, I mean, that has to be it. That has to be what people use, and we got it. And it turns out that there's no adjustable focus. The focus, all the lenses are set, the focus is set, and if your subject isn't the right distance from the camera, it's not in focus. And it was just the worst camera ever. And so we returned it, and we bought a Canon Rebel 3, I think. And it was able to shoot time lapses in 4K. Not with autofocus, HD with autofocus, which was kind of a struggle during my first wedding, because I was like, I have to shoot 4K. And so I was like manual focusing my tiny little pancake lens on the end of my tiny little camera the whole time. That was fun.
A hard time. And then you had the Steadicam.
I had like the $60 Steadicam from Amazon that was like all right, and then I obviously didn't know how to use it, so that made it worse.
Maybe we'll link in the description our first wedding film, so you can see where we came from.
It pains me to admit it, but there is a black frame in the middle of the video.
I thought he was gonna say it pains him to admit it, but he spent like 40 minutes on the cake.
Yeah, there's like 5 shots in a row of the cake too.
And so many shots of just the cake. Which the cake was great.
The cake was awesome. The videographer shooting the cake was a little excessive.
But so we prepared for this wedding by literally laying in bed on the mattress on the floor and watching our TV that we had brought from our apartment. We had like 3 things in our room at the time. We had our mattress just straight up on the floor. Yep. We had our TV stand, which was like one of our biggest pieces of furniture from our apartment. That and like the couch, but the couch we couldn't bring with us.
No, the couch went to storage.
The TV stand and our TV. And we would watch all day, all night, obsessively. We watched people do wedding day walkthroughs and how to shoot X or how to pose people, or like that's all we did with all of our time was like preparing for our first wedding. And we didn't even get to like have any firsthand experience. It was all what we could find online.
Yep.
And it worked.
Yeah, it did work. We got significantly better each go around.
Yeah, we used that information. We flew to Idaho where their wedding was, and traveling and wedding capturing photo video, that's like a whole thing. Like, you'll have to let us know if you want us to talk about it, because I feel like we learned a lot the times that we've traveled, but we traveled to Idaho and got there a few days early, and then shot their rehearsal dinner because everybody told us it was a good idea that we get to see the space before we shoot in it. And at the time we were like, yes, like obviously. And then wedding day. And the wedding day was definitely
a wedding day.
It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was heartfelt. It was romantic and sweet and tearful, all the things you'd imagine a wedding day to be. And I remember trying to shoot the wedding ceremony, and the widest my lens could get was 50. I think I only have a 50? Yeah,
because the wedding was supposed to be in this giant, the church they got married in had one of these giant chapels with like 5 rows, like set up like a circle, but had like 5 rows coming out from the stage. And for some reason, they couldn't use that, and they had to use like a little tiny room,
like a little chapel
off to the side.
I think it was a prayer chapel.
Probably like 40 by 60 feet.
You could maybe fit like 30 people in there comfortably.
Yeah, so the lenses we brought did not serve the space well, and that was definitely a challenge.
Those were like the lenses we had though.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have a lot. I had my Nikon D40X. I had the kit lens that came with it. Mm-hmm. I had my 50 millimeter prime lens. I didn't have a flash. Did I? I might have, but I didn't know how to use it. I don't think
you used it, no. Because the wedding ended before the sun went down.
Yeah,
it was like
but
real
inside
short
it might have been good. I did use it inside, I think. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look at those pictures. But my lenses were like not quite appropriate for the setting, but they definitely worked. We got to learn a little bit about posing. I learned about how to shoot as a single shooter. That was my only experience, because you did video, so I couldn't rely on you to help me with video or with photo. So I learned how to shoot a wedding as an individual person. And then we left the wedding day. We offloaded cards, we started our editing, and we posted our first wedding pictures and our first wedding video. And almost immediately I got a call from my dad, and he said that there was somebody from school who had a daughter getting married.
Mm-hmm. Her dad works in a school as a teacher.
Yes. He's not in school.
Yeah.
he's a teacher, but one of the secretary of the school, her daughter's getting married. She had heard from him, because my dad is our biggest cheerleader, about us doing weddings. And with the weddings, like her daughter's getting married. It's also a COVID wedding, July. Like it's super soon. They hadn't found a photographer. They were wondering if we would photograph their wedding. It was like a 4-hour drive for us, right?
No, it was a 2-hour drive. And we went up a day early.
Yes, that's true. Okay. So it was like a long-ish drive.
Yeah, it was up it was 2 hours away.
With this couple, when they reached out, we did a Zoom call, or we did a phone call. I think all of my initial consultations at that point were phone calls. And I remember telling them that my husband's getting into videography, and I asked them if they would like a free wedding video in addition to the photography. And they were like, yeah, that would be great. And so we went a little bit harder into the researching. And did you get your Fujis before that? Or were you still shooting with the Canon?
I did. I kept the Canon, but I had bought, I think after your cousin's wedding, we had a very long talk about whether or not this is something we were going to do, and we very reluctantly hit the purchase button on B&H for a Fujifilm X-T3. So I did have it at this point.
Which was about all you thought you needed in a video camera at the time, right? Because what was the reason behind?
even today, the only thing, I guess the only thing that camera was missing was the low light image quality wasn't great because it was ASPC camera. So the when you shot video for me, we were getting better image quality out of your full frame cameras than we were out of my X-T3s. And I was like, well, this isn't quite fair to the people we're shooting for if I'm not using the best thing possible. And it also didn't have very good autofocus.
But it was like miles better than the Canon.
Yeah.
Like miles and miles better.
It was a step up from the Canon, which, because I wanted to shoot in 4K, that Canon was limited on its autofocus for 4K. It had good autofocus for HD, but not 4K. And so autofocus was a little bit better, but we switched to Sony from there, and then that's pretty much all we've needed.
Yeah, but at the beginning, I remember we were sitting in bed. We had literally just the savings that we had from when COVID had started. We lost our jobs, and
our business was still negative. We were still putting personal money into it,
which it didn't take a lot to get started, but I remember this. It was like a $1,500
for the camera,
but with the lens too.
Yeah, it was $1,500.
Oh, okay. $1,500 camera and lens. And I remember we were sitting across from each other, and I was like confident in you, and then we had to have like a one-on-one pep session,
are you gonna do this? Are you gonna stick with it?
Yep. Mitchell gets really into gear, and he dreams about gear, and then he doubts himself. And I was like, okay, if we're gonna do this and you're gonna buy the gear, I can't have you doubting yourself, not at least for a while. We have to do this. And so he bought the camera. We got it in the mail. There was a really long phase for probably the year that we lived at your parents' house, where we would get something in the mail every few weeks, and then we'd be on testing mode, where we'd test what we got and just make sure we knew how to use it. You got the Fujifilm, and then we went and shot this wedding. It was a beach wedding in Upper Sandusky, and it was beautiful. There were 20 people there.
Yeah, it was definitely it was during COVID, so it was a very small wedding.
Yeah, 20 people. Best food we ever ate.
They condensed the budget. They didn't cut it. They condensed it.
They did. We had prime rib, didn't we?
Yeah, that was super good.
So good. So we shot this wedding, and it had one of the dreamiest sunsets ever. They were adults in love. We just got great footage from this wedding. And didn't they tip us too?
Probably.
He gave us cash. They were feeling really good by the end of the night. And I just remember being you want to give us more money? I already feel just so taken care of. You gave us good food, and we're here capturing really great pictures. Like, it was so nice. And then we posted the video and the photos from that one. And almost instantly, my friend from College Madison had a friend whose photographer canceled on them for their November COVID wedding. And she was like, I'm giving my friend your contact info. And we had this bride reach out to us. We had a consultation with her, and it was like our first ever real wedding with over 100 guests in a Catholic church. And that one was a little bit different, wasn't it?
Than the first two we had shot, yeah, because it wasn't that different from the second wedding we shot, except for volume of guests. But in terms of the actual wedding day, it was a very full wedding day. We showed up very early and we left very late.
Yeah.
And we did all of the wedding things in between. And we did that at a beach wedding. I just think maybe we got there later and the day was a little bit shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely count that beach wedding as more of a COVID wedding because it had so few guests.
Yeah.
But we got the wedding, that was a Catholic wedding, and it was beautiful, and the couple was adorable, and pictures and video. I think that situation was the first paid video, right?
First one was free. I think Abby and Kendall were in October before November, so it was the second paid video.
Okay, yeah. So
basically, leaving our first year, we had 4 weddings under our belt.
Yes.
Having done photo and video
for all.
Well, we did video for all of them, and we did photo for 3 of them.
Yes. Yep.
And then we started marketing them,
and
right?
Yeah, marketing just basically was posting about what we were doing. Like, it's not like I made these big long posts about pretending to know anything about weddings. I just put out there the information that we knew, and I started to get excited, and I think that people saw that. And then I also jumped in just about every Facebook group around the area known to man for wedding planning. And whenever someone would put like looking for a photographer, I commented on that. I messaged them and was like, I would love to set up a consultation with you. I was on top of that.
Yeah, you spent so much time in those message boards and on Facebook and stuff.
But you know what? We had 4 weddings in 2020, and it was like over the course of 8 months, we had 4 weddings. In 2021, by the end of February, I had booked it was like 45 weddings for 2021.
Yeah, 21 was insane.
2021 was 45 weddings. For anybody who knows anything, 45 weddings is crazy.
There are 52 weeks in a year.
Yes.
And
in addition to being at the wedding and shooting, you've got the editing, you've got the emailing, you've got the timeline writing, you've got the first contact. I'm on those message boards like like it's the hottest thing out there. Like, I'm like messaging people all the time, and a lot of like leads didn't work out, so it was like time invested in things that, because there are a million photographers out there, but we were cheap, and I was present, and we were excited for people, and we got super booked. Like, that February was insane. I had consultations like every day. Let me go back to my calendar in 2021. Literally from the last week of January, first week of February, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 consultations that first week of February. In 7 days, I had 13 consultations. And that's with nothing on Saturday. So that was in 6 days. 13 consultations. And then the next week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 consultations in 5 days. Like, it was insane. But we had decided this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And we had to give it everything that we had, because
right around that time, my former bosses had called me back and said, we're ready for you to come back in. And I had to tell him that we had started something and it took off in a way we didn't expect, and that I can't come back. And so that was my decision to kind of give this a go.
I think also, was it around that time?
I think so.
One of my 70 job applications came back. It was like a case management position for the city we lived in, and it was basically just a people job. Yeah. And I was excited about it when I applied, and when they called me back, they were like, we'd love to have you in for an interview. And I just remember being super excited about that opportunity, but also like kind of hesitant, because this was starting to take off. I think that happened definitely before we started to get booked, because I would never have questioned it if we were starting to get booked. So it must have been like
2020 and not 2021.
The end of the year in 2020. And I just remember being on the phone, getting offered an interview months after I'd applied with no email that says, well, maybe later. Like, and looking at Mitchell and being like, what do I do? And he said, if you want it, take it. But if you want to give this everything, we've got to give this everything. And I was like, well, okay, like, I'm so sorry, but we started a business and it's taking off and I can't interview for the job anymore. So we went into 2021, like, full, like, we went into 2021 at a full sprint, like, ready to be the best photographer and videographer we could be and learn. Like, I think that was, like, the other big thing was we were just ready to learn how to do the job well. And so in 2021 we had 45 weddings, and they kind of started we had one in April and then they started in May. So 45 weddings between May and the end of November. So there are 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah, we weren't using some of those.
But
based on the season.
Before April didn't count. So we did a lot of double headers. This was the year that we did our triple header.
Yep.
Which is a whole video of its own.
Yeah, absolutely not recommend ever doing that.
Don't do a triple header. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But we were doing weddings for everyone. And something that we learned in that time that we were photographing weddings is that not all people who are hiring a low budget capture team, because we were definitely a low budget capture team. Yeah. I think our first probably dozen weddings were like sub $1,000 for photography.
Yep.
And then videography was like $300 or $400 in addition to the photography. So people were spending way under $2,000 for their capture budget.
They were.
And something that we learned is that sometimes people have a lower capture budget, but their budget for their wedding is definitely not low.
No.
So sometimes we would walk into weddings that were like super freaking nice.
Yep.
And we were like, us though?
Yeah.
Like, this is super cool. But we also did so much research and we prepared ourselves for every one of those interactions so that we were the most prepared we could be to shoot those weddings. And there were things that we learned. Every wedding I walked away from, I felt like I learned something every time. Probably for the whole first 2 years, I was learning something technical from every wedding.
Yep. You take away, you drive home and be like, oh, I wish I would have done that differently. Or when you're culling or when you're editing, you're like, ooh, next time I'm not going to do that.
Yep. Perfect. 100%. Mm-hmm. But after, I think in 2021, we learned that because of the growth that we had in 2021, we learned that it's not necessarily the workload that's going to be the hardest part of the job. It is the
workload. So because
of the growth that we had in 2021, we learned that it's not necessarily the booking issue. Like, we aren't going to necessarily have an issue booking people or finding work, but it's going to be maintaining like a work-life balance or managing a schedule, like with the amount of work that we were able to get. Because I always assumed you couldn't be a full-time photographer because there was not enough work out there. Yeah. Everybody and their mother's a photographer.
Yep.
How am I supposed to set myself apart from this mom that has a nice camera like I had?
Right.
Like, how am I supposed to set myself apart from that? And so we had learned a lot that year that finding the bookings wasn't going to be the problem, but the managing our workload was the problem. And we had heard some crazy statistic. I remember getting into my swimsuit to sit in your parents' hot tub, and I remember hearing somebody say that certain huge percentage of photographers are going to quit within the first 5 years of their business.
Yep.
Like they're going to dissolve their business. And I remember being like, that's crazy. And at the time, I was like, it's obviously because they can't make enough money.
Yep.
That was what I thought. But the reality is a huge percentage of people do find work and then they get burnt out.
Yep.
And then they
spend way too much time editing and shooting and talking to clients, and then they leave no time for themselves or their families.
Yep. And then they can't maintain that, and so they dissolve their business or they transition to something else. Yep. Because it takes so much from them. And that was something I did not expect, was to learn that it's something we can do. and that it's going to actually take some management to be able to grow in a way that's going to be like something we can consistently do well.
I say we went through our first 2 years of business, even into our third year, we definitely had trouble managing how much work we were doing. Like, I'm talking, we would wake up in the morning, we would have some breakfast, we would go to work, and we wouldn't stop working until like midnight or 2 a.m. Then we'd go to sleep, and we'd do it all again.
Yeah.
Day in and day out, except for the days where we're leaving for engagement shoots or shooting weddings.
Yep.
Like, I think even our first year, we worked like on holidays.
We worked on Christmas.
Yeah, we worked on Christmas.
And it's not because we're like martyrs for our business, or it's not because we are people who just can't put the work down. It was like we had clients who we had promised delivery times.
Yep.
And that delivery time was important enough to us that we were working every day. Like
Yep.
we were working from dawn until dusk
Yep.
every day. We would take a break to have lunch and dinner, and that was it. And other than that, we were working from the time we woke up until the time we went to bed. And I would even say that despite the fact that we are so much better about it now, we go through phases of that. Like I'm sure every photographer goes through busy season where they have days where they're putting so many hours into their business because you want to get everything out on time.
Yep,
Like you want
absolutely.
your clients' experience not to suffer because you accidentally overbooked yourself. Or, I mean, all it takes is you deciding your calendar is full and then someone you love or someone you care about saying, I want pictures, or we just got engaged or something, and then you open your calendar back up for that one session, and then somebody else reaches out, a long-term client, they're like, hey, I'm so sorry, we've been really slacking this year, can we please book a session? And all of a sudden you're 2 sessions too deep now. And so it's just such an easy slippery slope that all of a sudden becomes your every waking moment.
Or you're like, I have a little gap in my schedule and someone's offering to pay me for this job. I'm sure I can make it work. And it's not until you're staying up till 3-4 a.m. trying to finish the project before it's due. So you're like, maybe I could have done without that project on my plate.
And we had been charging so little that first year. Granted, our expenses were also next to zero, other than upgrading our gear, which needed to happen.
Yeah.
But other than the expenses of like the Adobe subscription and the gear upgrades, all the money we were making was to get into a home of our own.
Yeah, because while our parents are great and we are very grateful that they were able to house us for a year, like it's not easy living with other adults, and tensions definitely increased the entire time we lived there. And it was definitely time for us to go when we ended up going.
Yeah, I loved our time there. And we could not have done this without that time. Like, we would have felt too much pressure to do something else. Because that first year...
we weren't making a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we were making enough. Like, if we wouldn't have upgraded our equipment at all, then we would have been making enough. But the reality is that because we lived with your parents, we were able to put money toward gear in a way that we would not have been able to had we lived on our own.
It's kind of jump-started us because, while gear isn't the most important thing, having low-quality imaging tools and audio tools is definitely very hindering when it comes to elevating your work.
Yeah. Yep. It was exactly what we needed to get our business to where we wanted it to be. Like being able to put that money toward gear. We are very like motivated people. We've come to find out that we never feel safe. Like I think that COVID was very eye-opening for us and made us just not... I don't think there will ever be a point in our life we could win $3 trillion tomorrow and we still wouldn't feel financially safe.
Nope.
Like, even though we have plenty and booking is consistent, and like, even though it was at the time, like we ended 2021 fully booked for 2022. Yeah. So even though everything has been super consistent, we just always stress about going through a period of not having. And I really think that comes from COVID. I think that comes from our experience being let go.
Like you don't quite know what's around the corner.
Which is true of weddings too. Like we've had a couple couples break up, and then all of a sudden that expected income isn't there, which, you know, you'd rather them find out now than later that they're not meant to be together. But it still sucks
for them as people. It's good that they find out now, but
as business owners, it's hard. I know for a fact that if we were not put in a position in 2020 to really analyze what we wanted, like, and just dream, we would have never been here. And so I think that the biggest thing that someone could take away from our story is that if you have a dream, even if you let it take up only a small corner of your mind, give it a little extra thought today. Just analyze what you want and give it some extra time.
Yep. Because if you have an idea and you sit on it for a year, in a year, you're going to look back and think, oh, where could it have been if I had just given it just a little bit of time, just started getting things moving. Like, you never know. And if it takes off, then you do that.
Yep. At most, you lose like a few hours, maybe a week of time if you decide you want to start doing something that you love.
Yep.
And but what you have to lose is potentially a life that you would love.
Yep.
Like, we are so fortunate that we're also like equal parts husband and wife, equal parts like best friends, because we work really well together and we love working together. And that's something we're fortunate to have. But we definitely would not get to know this side of our lives if we had not given it the thought and the time and the energy.
No, we probably would be miserable people working jobs we don't like at this point, kind of just wondering when it's all going to end.
Yeah. And I just, for anybody out there who wonders if there's something more out there for them or if their dream could be a reality, just, even if it feels silly at first, because I was terrified. We were terrified.
Oh, it's so scary.
It was so scary. Just take the leap, because, I mean, the worst case scenario is you waste a little bit of your time. Best case scenario, your life does a 180 and you're able to make more out of it than you ever dreamed possible. And maybe your dream is to spend more time with your children, or to be a better spouse, or to work with your spouse so that you have that extra level of companionship in your life. Like, if those are your dreams, I don't know why, like, what are you waiting for, you know?
Yep. Because
I feel like I can give this pep talk because we're here, but I would be listening to this if we hadn't been pushed.
Yep.
We would be listening to this and probably thinking we could never do it.
Yep. We're like, oh man, that's crazy that they did that.
So let this be your COVID layoff. Let this be the wake up call that you need, and then go give your dreams some time. Like, you're a whole individual person who deserves to feel success and feel happy and like fulfilled, and there's no reason why your dream doesn't deserve time, even if it's slim. Like even if your time is really slim, look at your calendar, figure out where you have a couple hours, and then plan to give your dream some time. Do some research, like figure out how to give your dream time next week. Like, just try it, because there's no reason you need to go your whole life never having experienced your dream. So, you know what? Actually, this is homework. I, as a professional person in charge of nothing, I challenge you to give yourself 30 minutes in the next day for your dream. If that 30 minutes is while you're getting ready for the day, put a YouTube video on and learn about your dream. If that 30 minutes is right before you go to bed, you just sit down with a journal and you just kind of like think through what you want to do, do that. But I challenge you, in the next 24 hours, think about what your dream is and what the end goal could look like for you. And I promise you that if you give your dream the time it deserves, you're not going to regret it. Like, at the very least, you're doing something you're passionate about for a little bit, and that in itself is fulfilling. But until we talk to you next time,
thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.